Vocabio. Master English your way.
Problems in Singapore for those marginalized groups.
The civil service would be slightly marginalized because all the aides have been put in the political appointments.
They're being marginalized. And so these three characters and their relation.
When we talk about, people online, and especially for women of marginalized backgrounds.
Looking at groups that have previously been marginalized, or there's a great interest in cultural history, all of which is very...
First gradually, and then with a bewildering speed. I have seen what happens when populists come...
Watch Twitch for half an hour. It is bewildering and confusing, and yet at the same time, you know that...
If I went down to Houston, how many ways was that a bewildering trip? I'm a 25-year-old grad student.
The idea that it bewildered the parents, that all of a sudden the child...
And there's trainings and there's TV shows and they're a little bewildered, right? And there's also people who want to burn churches because...
Or even though occasionally, quite often, you might defy the bosses, but nonetheless, in the back of your brain...
It's to be able to do that. But it's also defied a lot of conventional wisdom. But I think...
defied expectations and suffered quite the drop.
Expectations in terms of their partisan leanings.
Story. And the more people divide themselves into nations, the more they are, I think, willing to fight.
Look, the political system has broken down. Brexit is proven nothing is working. We are the worst of the worst. No.
That is later disproved. Today in medicine, but not just medicine.
At it than Bitcoin. It wouldn't disprove the argument, would it? It would simply say, well, these vegetables...
But you can't actually disprove that because you don't have the racial data.
Hard to prove or disprove. Is much harder to, in a sense, validate than empirical.
Is talking about, and there is an appetite for overturning the filibuster. And as far as whether that turns us into a banana republic.
Since World War II, there's been a massive overturning of many of the premises of the United Nations system, for example.
Subversive action in order to overturn the government. Under this definition,
complex, but this new generation, young generation, overturning a key policy was more positive for me. Dollars on a campaign recently in California to overturn a state law mandating that their drivers be treated as
the apprenticeship route to kind of get qualified teacher status, I think, is a really important thing that we're doing.
Viable alternative. I just don't think Bitcoin would qualify. I think gold would.
So, I'm sure there are other people who would be more qualified for this job. I know a few of them.
And then got married to my grandfather, who is not qualified as a doctor at the time they get married. And they...
What, in your opinion, qualifies a minister to be a minister?
Move on the chessboard. We can't outsmart Putin. Sanctions are not...
We all have the ability to outsmart anything life throws in our path, as long as we're willing.
History, which in one way or another outsmart death and promise immortality without concluding.
So clearly this idea we can outsmart our enemies through offense alone is a fallacy.
Move on the chessboard. We can't outsmart Putin. Sanctions are not...
2022, intensifying it in 2023, that failed. I mean, the point of it was to...
Over culture and values will probably intensify as certain groups realize...
Water consumption data centers also intensifies the overall water consumption. So we try to...
we also have intensifying culture war. If you are out there...
Amplify the ongoing humanization of war or intensify it. And...
Half years as a British diplomat, I've been harassed and intruded upon in ways which most of you would find very weird, except...
You have been harassed. You have received death threats, rape threats.
They talk about deliberately sexually harassing women in the street or in public space when women don't want...
Figure out how our brains make up imaginary scenes one moment before harassing us on the bus with what you need.
The 2-day work week, hurrahs all round, and author of books including platform.
And you evoke your time at university, Oxford, Magdalen.
Religiosity. It was possible to evoke a sort of feeling
of Islam and people just with a particular way.
The language of music to evoke emotion that's in those words and in the characters and scenes.
Against a terrorist regime. Why does that evoke the passions of 180,000 people?
His very name, Vladimir, you know, evokes the idea of Vladimir the Great.
Who aspire to a more group-orientated vision of British society and modern.
The intention is to be goal-orientated. So all of us who've worked in organisations do that.
The book obviously ends on this very sort of future-orientated perspective.
Liberal-orientated people are very intolerant, can be very intolerant.
Book, the entrepreneurial spirit, future-orientated mindset. I do want to talk then about
in which he often denounces the rise of cryptocurrency and creates.
He'd made a name for himself by denouncing the war in Iraq, but he sort of described
actively denounced teachers or were involved in violence.
Advocates say that the figures used to denounce crypto are misleading, and when you examine the biggest contributory factor,
religious identity nationalism, which denounces the rest of us as being anti.
If we may, we have a roving microphone. Gentleman in the stripy top there.
The whole week waiting for Putin's press conference, kind of rubbing our hands, going, "Oh, this will be good," and just.
It's a couple of roving microphones to make sure that you are heard. But let's kick off.
Squared DNA. There are roving mics.
I beg you. Okay, so where are the roving mics? Do you want to just find a couple of
administration that was absolutely refusing to adhere to that
with aplomb. He needed to adhere to his coronation oath, and he needed to do all of that.
Of compounds that have adhered to the plastic through adsorption. So
expected to adhere to a notion of India, an idea of India.
And his mother clearly adheres to, but also the whole big notion of
the business of developing medicines becomes politicized with one monolithic part of a political agenda.
Barr, the Department of Justice, who has completely politicized and purged the Department of Justice. And
further damage the country, politicize the justice system, and perhaps boost Trump's narrative of victimhood. So,
because the world's getting more and more politicized to the point where if people perceive you in one camp,
has become politicized, even though the founding fathers built a mechanism.
Became consolidated, that what you call ethnic groups.
Consolidated. At the time, in October, November 2011,
Xi's ability to consolidate his rule with one particular concept, and it's quite a populist.
Quite important features you've got with some of your older pension pots when you consolidate them if you're not careful. You know, if people aren't giving you.
Or in Donbass, trying to sort of consolidate some of the positions there. We did see the Russians making a
compelling and rather unsettling read. A quick look ahead at some of our in-person events here in London.
In the region, but there may be felt to be unsettled business, particularly because the Japanese themselves have a.
You know, that would just be too unsettling. So, and of course, all he wanted to do was go to law school.
Some of it's more unsettling and troubling histories, and I'm thinking.
I think very unsettling, sadistic image.
Essential to vindicating the rights each of us holds to be and to express ourselves.
So, but I feel vindicated because this, this has been coming for
deserving. He doesn't show how we can vindicate that idea without.
Saudi then seemed to be vindicated by the end of the Cold War,
and that seemed, for the first time in my life, to vindicate what had until then always struck me as a quite fringe left position.
Every story should create a problem, complicate the problem, and then solve the problem.
Suggested to some people a kind of, not just a complicating factor, but actually that there was.
Certainly in Freudian terms, in the sense that Freud would argue that
30, 40 years has tended to complicate the tax system, introduce new rates, introduce new.
Was diagnosed with cancer.
To complicate matters, he was also my mother's carer. And they
pivotal role as it alters marine, terrestrial, and freshwater ecosystems around
in and around the heart. And excess fat effectively alters the fuel that the body sees.
Scientists believe that it wasn't possible to alter our genetic code. After all, the genes
against the information to see if anything's been altered or something has been removed. And it does happen. We had in photos.
You know, as we altered the publication date, rewrote.
Vocabio, available in Google Play. Download, discover, improve your English.